ดร.พงศักดิ์คะอาจารย์จะลองฉายสไลด์ดูไหมคะอาจารย์สวัสดีค่ะ
ครับสวัสดีครับ
ค่ะอาจารย์พูดภาษาอังกฤษนะคะอาจารย์แชร์สไลด์นะคะ
ครับ
ค่ะ
สไลด์ส่งไปทางเมลครับ
อ้าว
หรือส่งไงหรือผมส่งแชร์ได้เลยไหมครับ
อาจารย์แชร์จากเครื่องอาจารย์ได้ไหมคะ
ได้ใช่ไหมครับครับ
อะไรหนึ่งมันเรียกครับอ๋อยังไม่ได้เปิดใช่ไหมครับ
ได้ไหมคะอาจารย์ไม่งั้นเดี๋ยวหนูหาในเมลของอาจารย์ธรรมศักดิ์ให้ค่ะ
เดี๋ยวรอแป๊บหนึ่งนะน้องกำลังทำอยู่ครับ
ค่ะได้ค่ะขอบพระคุณค่ะอาจารย์
นิดหน่อยครับ
อันนี้ใช่ไหมครับ
ขอบพระคุณมากค่ะอาจารย์กระชัน
นึกว่าส่งทางเมล
รามคำแหง University, the country's largest public university, was established in 1971 and was named after King Ram Kamheng the Great, renowned for inventing the Thai alphabet. 26 November 1975 was a truly momentous occasion for Ram Kamheng, as it was on this day that Their Majesties the King Bhumibol Adulyadej and Queen Sirikit graciously visited the university at Hua Mak to officially unveil the statue of King Ram Kamheng the Great and to confer bachelor's degrees on the university's very first batch of graduates. 26th of November has been designated as the day on which the establishment of Ramkhamhaeng University is officially commemorated. In the 1970s, the House of Representatives unanimously passed a resolution enacting the Ramkhamhaeng University Act, 1971, a university line, a market-based university, to expand educational opportunities and create educational equalities for Thais of all levels, and was amended again in 1998. Faculty of Science was founded in 1972 as a part of Faculty of Education, consisting of 5 departments, including Mathematics, Statistics, Chemistry, Physics, and Biology. In 1974, the Faculty of Science was separated from the Faculty of Education, and its establishment was officially approved by the Cabinet. Currently, the faculty offers 14 undergraduate programs, 5 master programs, and 2 doctoral programs. The faculty has 8 departments and 6 divisions: Mathematics, Statistics, Chemistry, Physics, Biology, Computer Science, Material Technology, Food Technology, Electronic Technology, Biotechnology, Environmental Science, Agricultural Technology, Radiological Technology, Thai Traditional Medicine, Research of the faculty is actively conducted in a variety of fields: biological science, microbiology, medicinal plant, natural science, air quality and climate change, marine biology, biodiversity, taxonomy and systematics, fisheries and aquaculture, organic agriculture, physical science, bioactive compound, natural product and drug discovery, wine production, technological science, food processing technology, data science, material technology, robot technology, medical imaging technology. The Faculty of Science is the foundation for supporting local wisdom and to achieve academic and research excellence and produce the graduates who are knowledgeable and moral in correspondence of societal need. The faculty is an educational institution with academic excellence research, and technology transfer, as well as good governance according to sufficiency economy philosophy.
The President of Ramkhamhaeng University, Dean of the Faculty of Science, Associate Dean of the Faculty of Science, Ramkhamhaeng University, invited speakers, panelists, and faculty members, as well as all participants in this conference. Good morning. My name is Vichin Supala. I'm a lecturer from the Department of Biology, Faculty of Science, Ramkhamhaeng University. We are delighted to welcome you to the ASEAN Biodiversity session. This session belongs to the International Academic Conference on Multidisciplinary ASEAN Plus in the Age of Disruptive Society. So this is a two-day hybrid conference taking place on the 25th to 26th of May 2022, both on site at the conference room of the Faculty of Science, Ramkhamhaeng University, and online via Zoom system. This conference is also broadcasting through Facebook Live of the Faculty of Science, Ramkhamhaeng University. First of all, please let me give you a brief background of this conference. This conference is derived from the recognition of the importance of biodiversity, which is essential for ecological processes that support all life on Earth. Biodiversity is a vital foundation for ecosystem services that contributing to human well-being and livelihoods at local to global scale. The ASEAN countries are considered as a global biodiversity hotspot with the richness of terrestrial and marine biodiversity. However, the biodiversity has been threatened by various human activity and climate change, leading to habitat and biodiversity loss. Conservation and protection measures are urgently needed for protecting biodiversity and maintaining ecosystem service to achieve sustainability. To do so, we need to strengthen our research collaborations among researchers in ASEAN countries to develop novel knowledge on biodiversity to support biodiversity planning, sustainable utilization, and management. In this regard, the ASEAN Biodiversity session will be a great platform where we can meet and share the knowledge and experience. Today, we have a presentation session with 6 invited speakers, and in the afternoon, we have a poster and academic booth. So for tomorrow, we also have a presentation session for 6 invited speakers and 1 panel discussion on sustainable fishery management in marine protected area. So this session will be running in Thai. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the opening session. I'd like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Supong Prapyai, the President of Ramkhamhaeng University, to deliver his welcome remark. Please.
Organizing committee, invited speakers, distinguished participants, presenters, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Ramkhamhaeng University, I have the honor and great pleasure to welcome all of you to the ASEAN Biodiversity session under the International Academic Conference on the Multidisciplinary ASEAN Plus in the Age of Disruptive Society at the Faculty of Science, Ramkhamhaeng University, and via Zoom system. We are honored to hold this important event with several organizations in Thailand and Asian countries. The Asian biodiversity is the current international concern, especially the impact of climate change on the biodiversity and also the quality of life of people in the Asian countries. I hope that all The invited speakers, presenters, and participants will find that this conference is one of valuable platforms to gain access to researches and projects concerning biodiversity conservation and management. Most importantly, this conference serves as a significant milestone toward a great achievement of sustainable development goals. The scopes of presentation and discussion during the conference will benefit all stakeholders, particularly to understand and take action on several important issues such as public awareness in marine biodiversity, protection, protected area management, plant biodiversity, standard for carbon neutral tourism, and sustainable fishery management. I would like to sincerely extend my appreciation to all invited speakers, presenters, researchers, and managers for your contribution. I also thank the organizing committee and several organizations for your support that make this conference as a successful and fruitful event. I hope that you have a rewarding time at the ASEAN Biodiversity session with a great experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Supong Prapyai, the President of Ramkhamhaeng University, for his welcome speech. Next, I'm going to bring you to the next session. In this morning session, we have 6 invited speakers who are professionals in biodiversity. It is an honor to me to introduce and welcome the first invited speakers for this session. The first one, Professor Dr. Eileen Tan Chua Huai. She is the professor of the School of Biological Sciences at the University Sun Malaysia. Currently, she is the director of the Center for Marine and Coastal Studies at USM and executive director of the Asia Pacific University Community Engagement Network. She received her PhD in marine biology from the University Sun Malaysia. Her field expertise is in marine sciences, specializing in mariculture and conservation of mollusks. In 2020, she has been awarded to the Top Research Scientist Award in Malaysia for her expertise in mariculture and marine ecology, biodiversity, and conservation. She is the best woman scientist for her work in guiding the women folks in Johor Islands in earning their own income through the Giant Clam Conservation Program. She has initiated several Malaysian books and records for her contribution of molluscan studies. Today, she will be talking on the public awareness in marine biodiversity protection. Dr. Eileen, if you are ready, the screen is yours.
And good day to all wherever you are. Please allow me to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can see the screen, right? Thank you. That's great. Yeah, my topic today is public awareness in marine biodiversity protection. The last decade of 20th century was the first time a sense of urgency about the global scale degradation of natural habitats and the resultant threats to potentially millions of species galvanized an effort to both study and conserve what was at risk. The obvious question is, why has a massive international effort to deal with biodiversity crisis still failed to launch? I would consider it has not been successfully launched. The power of the people is well demonstrated as the primary force to protect our biodiversity. Let us discuss the public awareness in marine biodiversity, as well as the role of public in protecting our natural resources. When we talk about richness, many would think about dollar and cents, without much focus on our vast ocean heritage and translating our ocean heritage to our wealth. Why is biodiversity important to us, be it the terrestrial biodiversity or the marine biodiversity? Biodiversity provides to our economy, provides life ecological support, supports creation, recreation, cultural and scientific needs. Biodiversity represents a wealth of systematic ecological data that helps us to understand the natural world and its origin. Biodiversity supports our economies and enhances our well-being and has the potential to do even more. In this slide, it shows the five main roles of biodiversity to human well-being, namely biodiversity for the health, solutions to climate change, food, cultural and heritage, and biodiversity also sustains human livelihood. But I would like to bring your attention, besides the biodiversity, I would like to bring your attention the marine hotspots of the world with the highest marine biodiversity hotspots, mainly concentrating on at the Western Pacific. If you can see the cursor, the area that is outlined in red and or in purple color, this is the marine biodiversity hotspot. Let me show you another illustration. This slide shows the global distribution of cumulative environmental impacts, with the highlights on high cumulative impact index, which is also around the Western Pacific, which is around our region. This is indeed a worrying coincidence due to the biodiversity loss, added impact from the climate change and anthropogenic factors. From the past two slides, you can see that the hotspots is in the Western Pacific, as well as the areas vulnerable to climate change, also on the same area. So this is indeed a worrying coincidence. Biodiversity is critically important to our health, to our safety, and probably to our business or livelihood. But biodiversity, the diversity between species and ecosystem, is declining globally faster than at any other time in human history. The loss is at an extremely fast rate. This slide shows the primary drivers of biodiversity loss, which includes habitat loss, invasive species, overexploitation, pollution, and climate change associated with global warming. The influences are human population growth, increasing consumption, and reduced resource efficiency. To engage people in environmental issues such as biodiversity crisis, one has to inspire a connection with nature. That linkage should be built from a clear and compelling message about the importance of biodiversity and what we risk in depleting it. Sir David Attenborough, the famous naturalist, has quoted, "No one will protect what we don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced." If the biodiversity were lost, most of our species has been lost, our future generation would not know how to protect because they have never experienced it. Like the second statement, no one will care about what they have never experienced. This is something that is worrying. If you look at this study, which is done by the Monitor of Engagement with the Natural Environment, which is done in year 2018 to 2019, the survey found that around 90% of the adults in United Kingdom do understand and concern about the natural environment, which is stated, which is being highlighted in the area green. But if you look at the conservation actions on the right, only between 4 to 10% are truly involved in conservation actions. This scenario, this survey is similar also in our region. This is a reflection of the value action gap, showing gap between what people say and what people do. A lot of people know what to say and know and understand what is needed to be done, but only a small fraction, a small percentage of this group of people would believe and would do what we say, walk the talk. A simple example is, we do lots of beach cleaning on big groups, but when we see a piece of tissue on the ground at the parking lot, please ask yourself, how often do we actually pick it up when there's no people looking? And how many of us actually pick it up and throw the tissue in the proper place? We know we should not throw rubbish. How many of us would actually pick up trash on the roadside when there's no people watching us? What is our vision for marine biodiversity? We want broken ecosystem to be restored, missing biodiversity to be returned. We want people to benefit from a healthy ocean. We need more people on the nature side and more space for biodiversity to thrive. There are three main delivery strategies: do it ourselves, guide and support others, influence change and inspire action. These are the three main strategies, a very simple approach that we and each and every one of us can do. In general, many of us know what they are right things to do, but commonly, people want to fit in with what most people do. If we want to do something alone, we feel embarrassed, or we feel we do not have the courage to do. But if we would to form a group and we do it together, then we are more willing to do. And when it is an influence between what most people do and what should be done, we need social influencer to empower the public for the protection of biodiversity, to create sustainable behavior. To empower the public, we need to discuss issues that are impacting their livelihood. We need to empower the public to take action and to take charge. Issues that impacting the livelihood, for example, fish kills, affecting livelihood and fish farmers. Issues that touches the heart of the public, such as this endangered species being caught in abundant fishing nets. To engage people in biodiversity or in other environmental issues, one must provide the opportunity and enhance understanding that empower individuals to make choices and take action is based on sound science and reliable recommendation. We must encourage behavioral change for biodiversity among the public. The approach to be taken are motivate the change, socialize the change, and ease the change. The public, all the communities should be made aware of the benefits of community-based marine and coastal ecosystem conservation and traditional biodiversity and knowledge, which includes social benefits such as community cohesion, such as this slide, such as which includes social benefits such as community cohesion, participation, ecological benefits, economic benefits such as community-based economies, and cultural benefits such as strengthening cultural practice and traditional knowledge as to be safeguarded. To empower the public, we must implement the 3 C's, which is communication, collaboration, and coordination. Empowerment has to go through education. We must start awareness from the very early stage, strengthening the knowledge inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom. Empowerment through public awareness and involvement. We should look into creating citizen science activities with the public, such as getting school children involved in collecting reliable data for management and decision making. Citizen science involve public professional partnerships and allow people of all ages an opportunity to participate in real scientific research and to interact with scientists in the process. Empowerment through stories. Nowadays the human attention span is very short. That's why we go into short YouTubes, we go into TikTok. So messages of marine conservation we can use the social media of interest to the current youth now. In the recent years, with the hectic lifestyle, people are reading less, but are more engaged with social media. The media has an important role to play to disseminate the awareness message to the public. That's why I mentioned about TikTok, cartoons, short stories that we can share and create the awareness. There are many things we still do not know about our vast ocean. Therefore, we must enhance the youth involvement to provide the opportunity for the youth, for them to make choices and to provide them to have a better understanding of the biodiversity. We need the involvement of our youth to play a more active role in protecting our marine biodiversity, like what been mentioned here by one of our undergrad student, Abigail Joy. She is very worried. Her quote is, "The scariest part about the ocean isn't the presence of sharks anymore. It is the presence of rubbish and pollutants that harm the ocean." And then we have another one. The environment and the wealth are just a loan from our future generations to us. They owe us nothing, but we owe them a well-kept environment and the pollution-free. And as the closing remarks here, I would like to bring to let all of you know the journey of educating and creating awareness for the protection of marine environment is a long one and is filled with many challenges. It requires a commitment and cooperation from all. And just like what been quote, another statement by Sir David Attenborough, it is surely our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home, not just for us, but for all life on Earth. So the take-home message today, to all our audience is we believe that when it comes to biodiversity, we are all stakeholders and we all have a responsibility to do our part for our shared future. So with that, I would like to thank you all for the attendance, for your attention. Thank you very much. And back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Eileen, for a comprehensive presentations. She mentioned about the public awareness, which is the key important components to support the achieve of marine biodiversity conservation and maintaining ecosystem services. I like your word that you say. You just say that do it ourselves first and then expand to others. This is a really nice one. And she also mentioned about the key strategies, just like enhancing communication, collaborations, and empowerment that would be a great facilitator for achieving biodiversity conservations. And any questions from the floor here or online? You may ask yourself or you may write the question on the chat box. Any questions? While we are waiting for the questions, I'm going to ask you one questions. I know that changing behavior of the people are quite challenging, right? And could you share us some idea how to overcome or get into the success of this changing behavior? Because when you go to the local people, right, some people might oppose about your idea and they don't agree with you at all. So how would you create the change for them?
Yeah, thank you, Vichin, for your question. That is a very good question and a very challenging question. It has to be involved with all parties, ourselves, the community, and also the policymakers. Currently, I think in most countries globally, there is rules and regulations of trying to make the environment better. For example, we start off with saying no to plastics. By like in Malaysia itself, we start with reducing the usage of plastics in the supermarket, and now is we are going to implement no plastics at all in the supermarket, but single-use plastics like the straws. The policymakers can make regulations, but we still have small operators. Like if we go to the market, we still need to use some plastics. You cannot really actually stop 100%. But that when that situation comes in, we have to contribute as an individual to use plastic wisely and not using it just as if like it's because it's cheap. We can use it freely. We have to use it wisely. How much can we use? We have to use recycle bags, things like that. And of course, behavioral change, like I've mentioned in the slide, where we have group activities, we have fun doing it together, for awareness, whether be it beach cleanup or be it in a conservation program. But when we're alone and when nobody is looking, do we still practice it? Then it has to start from home as well. As a parents, we have to educate our kids. In the school, we have to educate the school children and to make it a habit. For example, I want to give you a good example of in Japan. You do not see a lot of rubbish bin in their streets because their community has been educated. Bring home your trash and you separate your own trash, and in the Japan system, you have to pay for the amount of trash that you are providing. So that is a mindset, if it's a upbringing. And if there's no trash out in the street, we know that after eating a sweet, the wrapper we have to put in our bag and bring home and throw. Those are all behavioral change that match and actually harmonize with the systems that the government has provided. So that is something not impossible. I think we are able to do it if we set our mind in it. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Richie.
Yeah, thank you for your kind word for that. And I like the idea that you not focus only the public society, but you also focus on the youth, the new gen, right? That will be the next gen for us for helping protecting biodiversity. Yeah, thank you. Is there any questions?
Yes, of course.
Okay, please
Good
go
morning,
ahead.
Professor. I'm Santana Nakapong from Ramkhamhaeng University. I'm a director of a research unit, supporting unit in Faculty of Science. I have some small question. Could you please share us the main research project in ASEAN University, and it is possible to get a cooperative research network with Ramkhamhaeng University?
Okay, thank you for your question. I think we do pure science. We do science pertaining to marine biodiversity, which is very academic. For example, like taxonomical work, we go to different areas, whether the areas is being threatened. So we go down to look at the biodiversity and see what is there to create some baseline data. You know, those are very academic. But I think there is rooms for collaboration in terms of students exchange and staff exchange, or we can have workshops together on this, because every time because I am a person that actually wants to promote, wants to translate academic sciences, not only in the level of academic, but it has to be put into actions. If let's say from a scientific research, you find a solution, you publish paper, most of it is just for our to achieve our key performance index KPI, and also for promotional purpose, but it stays in the library. You know, how do we actually use all these sciences, all these solutions, which the government has invested so much money in it? How do we now use all these solutions to be impactful for the public, be it the policymaker, be it a small community, or be it the schools? So these are the things we can share. You know, we can use our solutions that we have translated into actions. We can go down to your area and share with your students, with your youth, and we can even engage schools that we can work together to create citizen science among the students. I think there is a lot of opportunity that we can do together. It's just that whether you want to do or you do not want to do, besides all our additional tasks as a lecturer, as a researcher, those are the additional things we can contribute back to the community and to the society. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kindly provide. So maybe
Please
we
do
can
contact us. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any more questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much, Dr. Eileen, for taking your time for us today. And we hope to see you in the next meeting, right? When the COVID is eased. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Right. Next, I'd like to invite the next speakers, Dr. Gianto. Dr. Gianto is a senior researcher at the Research Center for Oceanography, National Research for Innovation Agencies from Indonesia. He received a master's degree in ecological marine management from the University of Brussels, Belgium, and a doctoral degree in marine technology from IPB University from Indonesia. He has been involved in many coral reef monitoring projects in Indonesia since 2000. And today, he will be sharing us on coral reef monitoring in Indonesia. Dr. Gianto, if you are ready, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear my sound?
Yes, we can see your slide, but it's not in the full screen. Could you make it in full screen, please?
Okay. Okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. Please go ahead.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to give a presentation at this session. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Yanto from Indonesia, and my affiliation is the National Research and Innovation Agency, Indonesia. On this occasion, I would like to present coral reef monitoring in Indonesia. So please allow me to start the presentation. Here is a map of the world coral diversity. In the legend section, we can see that it's explained that the darker the color, the higher the coral diversity. So we can see that the water with this dark red color have a higher diversity of coral. This region is known as the Coral Triangle region, a region that is the center of the world marine biodiversity, including coral diversity. Indonesia, together with several other countries such as Malaysia, Philippines, Timor-Leste, Solomon, Papua New Guinea, is in the Coral Triangle region. So about 67 of the world coral species can be found in Indonesia. And this map of the coral reef in Indonesia, the red color shows the distribution of coral reef. Coral reef are found in almost all Indonesian water. This is related to Indonesia geographical position, which is located in the tropic area, which causes the coastal environment to be very good for the coral growth. However, coral do not grow well in several water in Indonesia, such as in the western part of Sumatra here, south of Java, southern part of Java, southern part of Kalimantan or Borneo, and also in the southern part of Papua. In this location, there are many large river. The large river carry sediment from the mainland, and also fresh water from the river decrease the salinity of the water, and it's not good for the coral growth. Now, I would like to tell you about the development of coral reef monitoring activities in Indonesia. To make it simple, I divide it into 4 periods. The first period is the period before 1990. In this period, only a few coral reef monitoring was carried out. The covered area of coral monitoring was very small compared to the area of Indonesian water. This is caused by the lack of human resources who have the ability to monitor the coral reef. And also in general, monitoring staff still come from the central government. Coral reef monitoring activities during this period, for example, snail 2 expedition, it's opened between 1944 to 1945. This expedition was in collaboration with the Dutch. The location was around central Indonesia. And the other project is, we call it as ASEAN Australian Marine Science Project, started around 1987. In Indonesia, coral reef monitoring in this ASEAN Australia project was only carried out in Thousand Island, Kepulauan Seribu, Jakarta, and Ujung Kulon, West Java, Banten, Province Banten. Monitoring method during this period also did not vary, generally based on direct visual observation in the field by snorkeling, the simple equipment, and the line intercept transect and mantatau method have just started to be applied since ASEAN Australian Marine Science Project. Now we continue to the period 1990. Sorry, 1990 2000. Sorry, I mistyped this slide. 1990 2000. During this period, the number of monitoring activities began to increase, although not too much. The human resource in the local area had begun to be trained in data collection, and they were involved in coral reef monitoring activities. So not only from the central government, so the district government also involved in this in this period. The method used are line intercept transect, mantatau, as method that we use in the ASEAN Australia project, marine project. In the period 2000 and 2010, the monitoring coverage are increased, area are increased. Long-term monitoring was carried out in several locations related to existence of core map activities. Just for information, core map or coral reef rehabilitation and management program is Indonesian national program for rehabilitation, conservation, and sustainable management of coral reef ecosystem. In this period, coral reef monitoring was not only carried out by researchers from the central government, but also began to involve human resources in the local area, local university, and also NGO in the region. The method were more varied. We use align intercept transect, point intercept transect, and rapid drift inventory or time swim, and etc. In the period after 2010, the mountain coverage area is wider and spread throughout Indonesian water. Human resources involved are more and more diverse. National certification is applied for observer data through competency tests. So the staff to do the monitoring have to get certification to prove that they can make they can take the data using the standard protocol. So certificate is done to ensure the standard operation of monitoring implementation and data accuracy. The method used is underwater photo transect with coral points CPCA analysis develop of field data collection and analysis method. So in this period, we develop of field data collection and analysis method such as reef health index. I will explain a little bit about underwater photo transect because we use that method today. This is by using a 50-meter line transect. Then we take picture with an interval of every 1 meter, starting from meter 1 to the transect of the transect line. So for one line transect, there will be 50 photos. The area of one photo are about 2,500 centimeters. So if we take the photo, it's about the distance is about 60 centimeter from the substrate. So we can get the result is about 2,500 centimeter area. The following is an illustration of taking photo data. So we can see that this systematic sampling. So this is for the frame 1, from frame 2, 3, and until 50 frame photo that we taken from the field. For analyzing, we use the CPCA software. The software is developed by Collar and Gill 2006 using 3 random point. As I mentioned before, that we also developed the health index. The health index value that we have developed has a value between 1 to 10. The higher the index value, the healthier the coral reef. The following is a concept that we developed to assess the health index of coral reef. We use 2 main components, namely benthic and reef fish. The benthic component consists of resin condition by looking at the live coral cover, and resilient or recovery potency by looking at the live coral cover, rubble, and alga cover together. The reef fish component was assessed from the total biomass of reef fish from the target fish group. The target fish group that we calculated is only from the 7 families: Caridae, Siganidae, Acanthuridae, Serranidae, Lusanidae, Letrinidae, and Haemulidae, because this is the target fish that the fishermen catch. This the benefit of reef health index value that we develop. The first one is we can provide an overview of the health of coral reef. So the healthy coral reef, the higher the index value, and also reef health index value as a comparative study between one location and another, or in the same location but at different time. So if we have the time series data, so that we can be seen the trend that's occurred. For example, here For For example, I will tell you about the coral reef monitoring activities carried out during the coral fase. In the BIAC, the coral reef health index in the coastal location of Biak Island in 2015 and 2016. This is the time series data. Biak is an area in the province of Papua. It can be seen that the years after the initial observation, so in the result in 2016, coral reef close to the city, close to the city or port of Biak, have decreased in the value of coral reef index, while those far from the city or harbor, the value increase. This the benefit when we apply the coral reef health index. Now, I will tell you about the coral reef monitoring activities during the coral map phase 3 or coral map CTI, we call it, period between 2014 to 2021. The map show the location of the observation and the table on the right side, so when and where the observation were conducted. Here are the result, the percentage of live coral cover. It can be seen that in general coral cover in Indonesia between 2014 and 2021 was relatively stable and did not significant different using probability 5%, using alpha 5%. So with live coral value, with live coral value is around 28% live coral cover in Indonesia. So the value is stable and there is no change. There is no different live coral cover between 2014 to 2020. Okay, I think that's my presentation. I have we can discuss more and we can share about our experience in coral reef monitoring. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kianto, for your great talk. So you gave us some information about coral reef in Indonesia, which is one of the global marine biodiversity hotspot, which is quite important. He also talked about the history of the coral reef monitoring in Indonesia, and we can see the development of coral reef monitorings in various aspects. For example, the area cover that they monitors has been increasing, and they developed the technology and technique for monitoring coral reef, and they also engage public society to join the monitoring program that would make the effectiveness for the program as well. Lastly, he provide us the idea on the health index that he trying to track the coral health based on the benthic components and reef fish components. Yeah, and this is a very insightful information. Any questions from the floor or online? So I have one question, Dr. Kianto. If you are looking at the health index of the coral, you focus on benthic component, right? And then you look at the reef fish components. So I would like to know what indicators or what that you are looking for the fish, reef fish components. You looking biomass or density of the fish?
Okay, thank you. Can I answer now?
Sorry?
Can I answer now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. For the biomass of reef fish, we use the biomassa. So we divide it into three categories for biomass of reef fish here. So if the biomass is less than 970 kilogram per hectare is low. Medium if somewhere between 970 kilogram per hectare and 1,940 kilogram per hectare. And we classified to high if biomass more than 1,940 kilogram per hectare. So we use the all of my result in reef health monitoring, and we classify into some categories. For example, for live coral cover, we divide it into some categories. For fleshy seaweed, we also divide it into some categories: rubble, live coral, and also for biomass of reef fish. We only use maybe if only use some categories, because if we use many categories, I know that this is not the perfect model, I think, but it's better if we use many categories, but we don't have the data for all parameters. That's our reason. Only use the simple method, but if it can explain about the situation in one location, I think it's better. But I know that this is not very perfect model, but it's better than we cannot got information in our research. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if we're talking about the coral reef fisheries in Indonesia, do you think does the fisheries affect the health index if they have fish in that area?
Yes, because we work in the coastal area, so the fish that we calculated here is only the fish in the reef area. We use the target fish, reef fish, because normally if the over exploitation of fish in that area, the biomass of reef is decreased. So this is the reason why we use the target fish in the area. So if the index in reef health index is high, so it means that probably that area is good. There are many fish in that area. This something that I explained about reef health index. Thank you.
I see. Okay. Are there any questions? From Zoom, you may type your question on the chat box, or you can ask yourself. Please feel free to ask some questions. Okay, one question.
My name is Makama Sutashi from Marine Biodiversity Research Group, Ramkhamhaeng University. This is a very nice information and your nice presentation. May I have one question? Yes, from your data, coral reef area data, your situation from 2014 to 2021 is not changed. So you have experience from coral bleaching in your country and the trend of recovery in your coral reefs area in your Indonesia. Do you understand my question?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Coral bleaching in your study area and recovery trend from the coral reef degradation.
Coral reef degradation.
I think she is trying to ask you that when you see the graph, you mentioned that it not significantly changed, right? through
Yeah.
times. Yeah, the coral cover. And she is asking you about is there any impact on the coral bleachings in
Oh yeah.
your study area?
Yeah.
And does it affect to the coral live coral cover?
Okay. For the coral bleaching, for the coral bleaching, it's happened also in Indonesia, especially in 2016. Yes. In many area of Indonesia, there was coral bleaching, but in general, in Indonesia as general, if we calculate the average, there is tend to decrease, but the value is not significant in general.
I see.
Okay, but in some area, yes, there is the decrease of coral reef because of the sea level temperature, because of coral bleaching there. But in general, in Indonesia as a general, the decrease of live coral cover is not very significant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And
Okay, thank you
yeah.
ค่ะ
Okay, if there is one question, okay, please.
Good morning, Dr. Gianto. My name is Thatchai Pusiyanawin. I'm from the Faculty of Science, Ram Khamhaeng University. And normally I'm a specialist on the environmental science programs. Then one of my questions that I would like to ask you about the opinions that I saw the several interesting information and the data in Indonesia. But just try to relate with the global issues on the climate change. If we try to link with the health index, can you share the experience or your ideas? What are the trends of the futures for the health index related to the climate change or the global impacts?
Okay, thank you very much. As I mentioned before in my presentation, I think we calculate the reef health index based on the data that we got in the field. Okay, for example, I mentioned for the example reef health index in Biak in 2015 and 2016. So we can change if the data is time series data. So we can see that if the value of reef health index value is changed, maybe yeah we have considering maybe there is something wrong if the value is decreased. So this the alert for us to especially in the is especially in manage the coral reef in our area. So with using the reef health index, we can see the difference between reef health index before and after. Okay. And if there is maybe we can know exactly about the change, but we can looking for the reason why the value is changed. Maybe it's because of the global climate change or something. There is the pollution in one area or something like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gianto, for taking your time for us today. Thank you. Okay, for the next speakers, I'd like to invite Dr. Michael Adriano, for the next presentation. Dr. Adriano is a assistant professor at Marine Science Institute, University of the Philippines. He is also a co-program head of Professional Masters on Tropical Marine Ecosystem Management Program. He received his PhD in Marine Science from the University of the Philippines. Dr. Adriano has been conducting research on several aspects on marine science. For example, coral reef ecology, coastal resource management, and climate change. Today, he will be talking about a marine protected area in the Philippines. Dr. Adriano, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen, for that very kind introduction. And also the picture that you use, I look very young, 10 years younger than my age today. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Yemin for inviting me to this very important academic conference. I find the theme is very relevant to what's happening to us right now, especially on biodiversity conservation and all those socio-political aspects that can also, cause some threats to biodiversity and to MPAs in general in the Philippines, and maybe not only in the Philippines, but in the entire ASEAN, which sits in the apex of the Coral Triangle. So I have to apologize to you in advance because I'm actually attending the burial of my mother-in-law who died last week. Today is the burial, just waiting for me to go back to they are having the rites right now before the burial. So right away after my presentation, I have to leave. So I won't be able to entertain your question. Although as I really would like to stay and be part of the entire conference, but the present circumstance that I'm facing right now does not allow me to do so. So I have tweaked a bit my presentation just to make it more relevant to today's theme of the conference. So it's not just the MPA, Marine Protected Areas establishment and management in the Philippines in general, but I will also be giving you some background of what we are doing in the past 2 decades here in the Philippines. And there is one important lesson that I would like to share with you. It's actually a paper that is under development. And this is quite a unique experience because I don't think this has been uh, documented in the past or have been shared widely through a publication. So let me share my screen to you. Okay, do you see my screen now?
I see your screen, but yeah, please make
Yeah.
in
So
its full
I'll
screen.
start the presentation. So it's already on
Okay,
presentation mode.
perfect.
So
Please go ahead.
this is the title of my presentation. It's a brief interlude in enforcement, erased in a decade of cumulative benefits of a marine reserve management. This is a very important experience that we haven't been able to document in the past, although we know that if I'm referring to holding elections in the Philippines. We are a democratic country. We do elections. We hold elections every 3 years for our local officials and for our national officials, including our president and the vice president and member of the Senate. We do that every 6 years. And we know for the fact that continuity is very important as regard to MPA establishment. Continuity as regard to political and social support to MPA establishment. So if there is a break as regard to commitment of the local officials in sustaining the management of the MPA, then it would have very adverse impact on the MPAs. And for the first time, because we were able to, or we have a long-term project, we were monitoring some of the coral reef in the Philippines in protected areas. So we have like more than a decade data. We go back to some of the protected areas in the Philippines every year to monitor fish biomass and abundance, as well as coral cover. So we had that experience of several elections, and we saw that one election wherein the sitting mayor, who is very supportive of our initiative of management of MPs, lost in the election. And then during that very brief transition of changing the leadership at the local level, at the municipality level, just 1 month or 2 months, wherein there is no clear, where there is no takeover yet in terms of leadership, there is a breach. There's encroachment that happened in the MPA because those who are watching the MPAs activities in the MPAs have also their job at risks of being, being replaced by a new set of what we call the watchers for the MPA, to be brought by the new mayor or the new leader for that matter. So that very brief interlude in terms of enforcement, where nobody is watching the MPA, erased the benefit that we gained on a decade of continuous management of the MPA. And I will show to you some slides to show how the MPA improved from a very low biomass cover over time to very high biomass cover. And then suddenly, after an election where there is no enforcement being done right away, then the biomass actually dropped quite significantly back to where it started. But allow me also to give you some brief background on the history of MPAs in the Philippines. We are looked upon in the entire world as the leader in MPA establishment, especially MPAs that are co-managed by the community and their local government units. So we have as we speak, about 2,000 MPAs in the Philippines, all over the country. These are small and big MPAs. I will show to you the distribution as regard to sizes. This might not be comparable to the MPAs in Indonesia or maybe in Malaysia, where you have several hundreds of hectares. But then what's good in the movement in the Philippines is that even if they are small, social involvement and political buy-in is also very strong. So we started small, but we are expanding our MPAs, not only in numbers, but also in terms of sizes, because there's already very strong support that we gain over the years from society. Okay, so it's the MPA establishment in the Philippines is quite old. Started in 1940. There's a natural park or a national park established. We called it 100 islands because the area composed of islets, coralline islets, and if you can count them, they're saying that it is actually composed of 100 or so islands. So it's called the 100 Islands. So it's our first natural park, which is marine based. And the Sumilon and the Apu Island Marine Protected Area. And those of you who are following the publication, for example, of Dr. Alcala and Russ, this is actually their favorite site. This actually gained or made MPA establishment with community involvement popular globally. And a model for that is the Apu Island and Sumilon Island back in the 1970s, because Dr. Alcala is also a very known personality in the ASEAN. I heard the presentation from Indonesia about the ASEAN Australia project. I was also part of that. Back in the 1990s, Dr. Alcala was one of our partners, the prime mover of that. I remember very well from Thailand's end, it was Dr. Sorapon Sudara, and that's also where I also become very close friend with Dr. Yemen. We started off with that project, okay? And then, a lot of protected areas had been established. I started in 1970s, but most of the MPAs were established in the 1990s. There was like a bandwagon effect. So that's when Dr. Alcala, a marine biologist, became our secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So he started the movement of establishing protected areas all over the country, small and big. So the big ones are being managed and established and being managed by the national government through the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. But the ones at the local level are being managed locally by the mayors and the local officials with the community. So back in the 1990s, there were hundreds of them being established in a month or in a year. And then right now, we have more than 2,000 locally managed MPAs. We classify them under our own classifications of our MPAs in the Philippines as OACM, or the locally managed ones, or the other, effectively managed areas, or area-based management system. Okay, so that's the history of MPA establishment in the Philippines. And we have done a great deal as regards to MPA establishment. We have passed laws to recognize MPA as one of the the most effective tool in managing our biodiversity as well as fisheries. So there is a greater recognition of that right now. So there is an act of Congress establishing our national integrated protected area system. And then locally also, the local mayors are empowered by, we have a law which we call the local government code. They are empowered to protect 15% of their marine waters and put that under protection. In MP establishment is just among those many management options that they can do. Okay, so what's the Philippines setting for MP establishment? So mostly I mentioned are LGU managed, and it's a mixed bag, and there's an advantage and disadvantage for that, because if it's LGU managed, then there is an assured funding coming from the allocation of the local government units. Whereas if it's national managed, although they are big, and there is a legislation already for that, and there's an act of Congress. Sometimes, you have to defend the budget every year with Congress, for the allocation for the nationally managed MPAs. So the primary purpose of establishment MPA is, fisheries, especially for the small ones at the local level, because that's what the community understand, and you can get some buy-in if it's something to do with fisheries. So biodiversity is just secondary, but of course for us in the biodiversity conservation community, we see that the primary goal is actually biodiversity, and secondary is just the fisheries is just secondary. But you have to highlight that if you want to sell MP establishment and management to the community, you have to highlight the fisheries aspect, because that's actually where the community can connect with this MP establishment. If you sell that as purely for biodiversity conservation, they won't understand that, and you will not get support by the community from the outset. So there is an emerging, of course, strategy as regard to MP establishment for biodiversity conservation, because globally also there's a movement, a 30 by 30 movement right now to expand MP establishment all over the world to cover at least 30% of our waters to be placed under protection, in combination with the harvest control measures that we are already doing for managing our fisheries. Okay, so this is the history of MP establishment in the Philippines. So we started with just a small number, a handful of MPA, but as people are seeing the benefits of having MPAs, the spillover effect of an MPA to their fishing ground, as they are seeing that more and more people are willing to give a portion of their fishing ground to be established as marine protected area. So in the past, it was very hard, difficult for us to convince the community to give up even a very small piece of their fishing ground, because it affects it shrinks their fishing ground. But right now, because they know that by protecting a portion of the fishing ground, make that into an MPA, it will enhance, it will enrich their fishing ground. So in the long run, the benefit outweighs the cost, the immediate costs of establishing a marine protected area. So we have right now, the latest count is about 2,000 MPAs all over the country. So a combination of both small and the big ones. Okay, so the MPA sizes, we started small. That's when we started. We didn't consider like what the textbook are telling us, that if it's biodiversity conservation, you have to have 400 hectares as the minimum size. That's what Salmon Clark 2000 book is telling us, the minimum size if our goal is biodiversity conservation. But there is also another authority in MP establishment, Calum Roberts, also is suggesting that the smaller ones are actually better than the big ones if our goal is fisheries, because of the spillover effect. It's easy to fill in or to fill fish a small area, and then have have the excess to spill to the nearby fishing ground than having a big one. Start with a big one. So just like having a cup of water or a glass of water, it's easier to fill it in if the glass is small and then have the excess water to spill over than to have a very big pail and fill it with same amount of water. So that's the analogy that being used, and it's actually I agree with that. If the boundary is short, boundary is small, then it's easier for fish to move around and go out of the MPA to the fishing ground. Okay, so this is the history, and right now we are in the scaling up stage of our MPA because social and political acceptance is already there. It's quite it's now easier for us to convince people to have their MPAs expanded, especially because we started our MPAs as reef bias. That means most of our MPAs are established on coral reefs. So right now we are telling them that to complete, protect the protection of the fish, all its stages in its life cycle, you have also to protect the other habitats. So we have to include now seagrasses and mangrove areas in our protected area. We have to expand our protected area so that the whole range of habitats present in the area can be protected, and that in that way also we can also protect the entire life cycle of the fish. Okay, so we have a strategy. This is agreed upon by many members of a very broad stakeholders in the Philippines. So we call it the PhilMarsat or the Philippine Marine Sanctuary Strategy. So this is now the basis for us where to establish our MPs. What number are we aiming for? What size in terms of hectareage are we aiming for? So if we base that on the existing law on local government code, which mandates the protection of at least 15% of our marine waters, then we are aiming for 15% of our marine waters in the entire EEZ. Now, because there's a new campaign to expand 30%, now we have to, go back to take stock of what we have and what we can, commit globally. Can we expand the 15% to say 30%? Because that's globally, that's actually now the goal. So we have to consult again with our stakeholders to see where we are at. Okay, so we have this five-point agenda. I will not go through to this. There's no need to belabor that. But what this one is saying is it's really very important that we have protected areas in the Philippines in combination with the harvest controls because of the sorry state of our fisheries. Our fisheries is very overfished. So it's now just only 1/3 to 1/4 of what it used to be in the 1950s as regard to what we harvest from our ocean now within our territory. So we want to have more effectively managed MPAs. So it's not just MPAs or protected areas on paper or what we call paper parks. We want to see more functional MPAs. And that is actually what we are doing. We in the university have an outreach program, for example, to go to the sites, to talk to the local government units and communities, encourage them to increase their governance for their MPAs. In fact, we established an MPA network, MPA support network or MSN with that goal, not to encourage existing MPAs all over the Philippines to become functional and to be sustained over time. We help each other as regard to, establishing the MPAs. This is the network that I'm talking to you about. So we have this MPA Marine Protected Areas Support Network. It is composed of several organizations, including government agencies, but we have all the NGOs in here, especially the international NGOs who have presence in the Philippines, the universities, especially my university, University of the Philippines, Marine Science Institute. We are presently the secretariat of the MSN. So this is a convergence, area for all of this, our partners to discuss the issues and the challenges that we are facing as regard to establishing protected areas. We are also providing the advice to the, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as regard to biodiversity, because we have a science group within the MSN who is doing that. Okay, so we have developed MPA and MPA network toolkits through the MSN, and we are sharing this widely to the MSN network, so members of the network. Okay, so this is actually quite an important also that we also have a course that is based on MPA management in the Philippines under a professional masters on tropical ecosystem management program. So one of the specialization there under the program is MPA establishment. Although we want to broaden, we want to include other aspects as well of management like an EAFM or ecosystem approach to managing fisheries as we expand the course. But this one is a newly established program within the university. And then its goal really is to create more or to create more champions locally, which are knowledgeable as regard to MPA establishment and management. Okay, so we are advocating that at least one municipality should have at least one MPA all over the country. So we have now, this one, the map is showing to us. So the yellow ones are the location of the MPAs. As you can see, there's a concentration of the MPAs in the central Philippines, not much on the northern part of the Philippines. So there are other areas that don't have yet MPAs, and that's what we are aiming for these areas, to have at least one MPA per municipality. So there are municipalities already with several MPAs, like 10 MPAs or even more than 10 MPAs within municipality. But these are small MPAs that they are, they form as a network of small MPAs. Okay, so we also incentivize MPA establishment. We recognize MPAs we are well managed. We establish an award through the MSN. We call it the Para Elmar Best Managed MPAs, to encourage MPAs, existing MPAs, to improve on their governance. So those who are not managing their MPAs, those MPAs who became stagnant, dormant, not being managed from the time they were established, are encouraged to improve on their governance, because biannually, every 2 years, we are recognizing those well-managed MPAs, and we give them awards. So it becomes a pride for them locally that their MPAs is a well-managed one. So we give them monetary rewards as well as recognition. And that's being recognized nationally. They are even being picked up by the media, by TV, and that encourages other people to improve also on their management of their MPAs. Okay, so the more important thing is we do monitoring and evaluation, which is not being done widely across MPAs in the Philippines for lack of, lack of technical know-how or lack of skills for monitoring and evaluation. So it's understandable because, we are dealing with objects or subjects that are immersed underwater, and you need sophisticated equipment, you need scuba diving, or you need even some equipment for snorkeling if you don't have, scuba diving equipment to do a monitoring and evaluation. Because there are MPAs established in the Philippines in which they were established randomly. There were no scientific information as the basis for establishing their MPAs. So sometimes there are MPAs that were placed in mud, in sand, no corals, no seagrass. And they do not know that because they don't have scientific knowledge or data when they establish their MPAs. And there are MPAs. And what we are doing now is to rectify that and then train people locally so that they themselves can do at least a survey before they will establish their MPA, so that they know that they place their MPAs in the right place. Okay, So there is a reporting and feedbacking. This is one is very important, and we see it's very important. We just don't gather data and let the data gather dusts in the shelf or in the dustbin. It must be shared back to the community or to the policymakers. So we provided a platform for sharing of the data. In the past, we published like the Philippine Coral Reef Atlas or Reef Through Time or the state of the coasts. And then this is where the MPAs, no, they can contribute. So they can, submit an article about their MPA, and then we publish it here so that the learnings that they gain in managing their MPAs can be shared widely. It's very important, especially for for locals, because they don't have a very strong repository of data. Sometimes data are lost when there's change in leadership. So if it's already published and in this form, then it becomes permanent and accessible to everyone. Okay, so I mentioned this. We are linking it to incentive systems. We do give awards to best managed MPAs. There are some variations in the region, but the more important thing is we are recognizing MPAs that are well managed, and that encourages other areas and other people to establish MPAs on their own. Okay, so we have this. We developed the awards. We established the criteria. We even established this evaluation system. So we have tool to establish governance and ecological performance for an MPA. We call it MEET and the NEET. If it's single MPA, an individual MPA, we call it MEET or MPA evaluation assessment tool. And then the other one is NEET, is just for, the N is for network of MPAs. Okay, so we have this MPA MEET and as well as NEET. Okay, so looking at the bigger picture, of course, we want MPA is just the start. MPA is just a small component of the bigger one, which is we want the MPA to be situated to be part of the bigger integrated coastal resource management, or even an ICM, so integrated coastal management framework. So it's just one of components of that. So moving forward, there are still a lot of gaps that we have to address. There are some institutional arrangement. There are some, sometimes overlapping in terms of, mandate among our government agencies that we have to address. And then the good thing is we have the MSN, which is a neutral and independent group who can be the bridge between all these agencies who are not talking with each other, who are in competition, who are in this, they're like turfing. So this is the one that I told you about, the title of my presentation. So we were monitoring MPAs in the Philippines, and then one MPA that we monitored, this one is in Uba, this one is in the southern Philippines. The monitoring happened right after an election, but we have already data for several years for that site. And then we noticed very abrupt, very significant decline in fish biomass. 60% of the fish biomass decline that we observed, just because there was 2 months, interlude. There was 2 months stoppage as regard to enforcement. So this is the thing that we do. So we are still applying or using the one developed by English et al. Through the project, the ASEAN Australia project, the line intercept transect method, and the fish visual census. We are applying this. We are employing these methods in monitoring our protected areas. So we establish transects inside and transects outside, just for comparison. So you have the fish zone and the unfished zone. So it's very clear that there is an impact when you protect an area. So you would expect that inside there is an increase in biomass and improvement in coral cover. So we monitor coral cover through time. We also look at the herbivore biomass, and you see there's an improvement. And you see also that the hard coral cover is, improving through time. And that's because there is also an improvement in terms of herbivorous fish biomass. Uh, there's no need to belabor on the role of the herbivorous fish, but they actually help, they consume or they graze upon the algae that lodge or grow on dead corals so that they free up space for recruitment of corals. That's why you see improvement in coral cover through time if you have healthy population of herbivorous fish. This is the one that I told you about. We monitored the MPA from the time it was established in 2011. Then there is an incessant or there's the continuous enforcement that being done by the local community together with their local leaders. And then you see a very abrupt or very steep increase in fish biomass through time up to 2017. But after 2017, there was an election and incumbent mayor lost in the election. There was a change in the leadership. And in that transition for just 2 months, there was no enforcement that being done on the site. And then you see that there is in 2019 inside the APA, there was an abrupt, decline in fish biomass. This is also this was also, observed in the other MPA in the site. There was also an abrupt decrease in MPA. We look at also, if we go back to this is in terms of abundance, but the decline is very pronounced if we look at fish biomass. So you see that the fish biomass is, back to the level of 2013. So that's about almost a decade of protection, continuous protection that lost because there was a change in the election. There is something that we did not actually see happening. So maybe one of the recommendations that we can make as regard to, making sure that there is continuity as regards to enforcement is that to make all those watchers of our MPAs permanent, having permanent position, not coterminous with the mayor, so that whenever there is a change in leadership, they'll continue to protect their MPA. And this is still, the order of the day across the sites in the Philippines. Those who are keeping watch on our MPAs are coterminous with political leaders. So we want that at least most of them, half of them, if not all of them, should have permanent position in the local government so that they can continue the enforcement, whether there's a change in political leadership. Because this is very significant. This is like, an MPA being hit by strong typhoon or being hit by an infestation of Cantaster plancy or being hit by coral bleaching event. So we observe the same. Even the magnitude is even higher. So if the trend will continue, every 3 years we change our leaders, and every 3 years we change our leaders, and there's no continuity in the protection effort, then we would see very significant impact. Because we are starting again from a lower starting point, starting biomass. It will take time for our coral reef to recover. In our case, it took like 3 to 4 years to see very significant increase in the fish biomass. So I guess this ends my presentation. We hope that you learn a lot from my presentation today. As I said, I apologize that I cannot stay very long with you. I can entertain one question though, and then after that, I have to leave and to go back to the burial rites of my mother-in-law. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Michael, for the insightful information. I think we learned a lot about the information about the MPA, how you developed the MPA in the Philippines, starting from national park into you engage community into the MPA management, and you provide us some a great key point on MPA agenda that we can further apply to our countries. And this is a great information on the MPA. Is there any one burning question, please? Okay, if not, we're going to express our condolences to your loss too, and thank you very much for taking your time for this contribution. Thank you very much, Dr. Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much also, Dr. Wichen, and to all the participants who listened to my presentation. It was a pleasure to be with you in this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So next, I'd like to invite the next speaker, Dr. Pongsak Ponsena. He is the Director of Forest Conservation Promotion and Extension Section, Forest and Plant Conservation Research Office of the Department of National Park, Wildlife and Plant Conservation in Thailand. He received his bachelor and master degree in forestry from the Faculty of Forestry, Kasetsart University, and his PhD in biology from the Faculty of Science, Khon Kaen University in Thailand. He has a long experience on plant taxonomy. So this morning, he will be giving a talk on Flora of Thailand project, now 2022 and then 1963. Dr. Pongsak, please. Yes, Dr. Pongsak, we see your screen now, but could you make the presentation full? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Today, I would like to present about the Flora of Thailand project and forest herbarium. 4 years ago, I was a director of forest herbarium of BKF and a member of board of Flora of Thailand project. Thailand is one of the most biodiversity-rich countries in Southeast Asia. The physical feature of Thailand range from the sea level to 2,565 meters in Doi Inthanon, Chiang Mai. We have 17 forest types, such as upper mountain rainforest, lower mountain scrub, evergreen forest, peat swamp forest, freshwater swamp forest, mixed forest, and dipterocarp forest. The diverse vascular plants of Thailand, which estimate number of no less than 11,000 species. Let us go to the Flora of Thailand project. The Flora of Thailand project is a long-term project to document all flowering plant, gymnosperm, ferns, and fern allies of Thailand. The project was initiated in 1963 under Thai-Danish collaboration. The top photo shows the first board meeting at Kew, United Kingdom in 1964. The bottom photo is the meeting in 2011 in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Editorial board made up botanists throughout Europe and Asia. This slide shows the editorial board in 2017 to 2018. Editorial board at present. This slide shows editorial team of Flora of Thailand. Sorry. This is current editor-in-chief, Dr. Kongkanda from BKF and Dr. Henrik Berslev from Aarhus, Denmark. We meet every 3 years, alternate between Thailand and overseas herbaria. The last Flora of Thailand meeting was held in 2017 in Krabi, Thailand, due to the COVID-19 pandemic situation process. The goal of closing the project in 2024 has been postponed to 2026. This year, the meeting will be taken place in Singapore in July. The next 2 years, we plan to have meeting at Aarhus, Denmark. And the next year, we plan to have meeting in Thailand. And the project will be concluded and closed in 2026. Sorry. In Thailand by BKF. The last meeting was in Krabi, Thailand in 2017. We also have a day of botanical excursion. Sorry. Dr. William and Dr. Bikita from Leiden, the Netherlands, have done many family for Flora of Thailand project, and we given a special award for them. Some family done by them, Cucurbitaceae, Solanaceae, and Lithaceae. At present, approximately 75% of the Thai flora has been described. The largest family published so far, such as Spalaceae, Alaceae, Moraceae, and Myrtaceae. Our most recent volume is volume 15, part 1, Rubiaceae, published last year, comprises about 400 species. They are the largest family not yet published, such as Poaceae, consists of 577 species, Lamiaceae, Acanthaceae, Cinquebraceae. From the last meeting, we aim to complete the family by 2024. Once all family are complete, update of particular genera of family will be published in Thai Forest Bulletin, our own journal, which is also online. Solidaceae was published in 1987 by Bartel Hansen and was revised in 2012 in Thai Forest Bulletin. Let us move to Forest Herbarium. Forest Herbarium or BKF was established in 1930 and is the largest herbarium in Thailand, housing over 280,000 specimens, including about 815 Thai specimens. This slide shows one of the cupboard of our type specimen. Recently, our herbarium has 815 type specimens. Among them, more than 200 specimens are holotypes. The oldest herbarium cheese is Hiptaki candy can, collected by Pierre in 1860. We have 72 permanent staff and approximately 40 temporary staff and several honorary botanists. We have been under Department of National Park, Wildlife and Plant Conservation or DNP for 70 years. To that, we were under Royal Forest Department or RFD. Apart from BKF, we also control 18 botanic gardens and 43 herbaria throughout Thailand. Our aim and duties are typical of any herbaria. Specimen processing. Every year, we have many collection trips with overseas participants. Some few things we made for overseas botanists. Dr. Caroline from Oxford University, Dr. Hajo from München Herbarium, and Dr. David Johnson from Ohio Wesleyan University, USA. Dr. Willem and Dr. Bikita from Leiden, the Netherlands. This is our present home, opened in 2002. This is a plan of 2 floors. The top floor has dicotyledon, monocotyledon, and lower floor is ferns, gymnosperm, and spirit collection. More view inside the herbarium. We photograph every specimen and enter details to our database. This is a visitor room for our guests. We also provide microscope and computer for visitors and provide transport trip for visitors too. This is our library. Our library have more than 10,000 books, including overseas journals and also local publications in Thai and in English. We publish herbarium news for kids too. Each day in Thailand has particular color. For example, Monday is yellow. So each Monday we send a picture of a yellow flower to friends throughout the country. Hence, we provide picture of flower for public. Tuesday is pink. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Phong Suk, for your interesting presentations. He gave us some history of the flora of Thailand projects, and that has a long history starting at since 1896. Right? There have been various activities and outputs, such as the Handbook of Flora of Thailand, that have been updated regularly. He also mentioned about the history of the forest herbarium in Thailand, which is just like academic treasures for plant taxonomy and studies. And we learned about the outputs that the plant herbarium published through REES. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Any questions from the floor and online on the chat box? Okay คุณกนก on she said that many thanks for nice presentation. The Flora of Thailand is a long-term project and most of others will be retired soon. So she asked how is the Flora of Thailand going to be, I think, in the future.
Yeah. We aim to finish the project in 2026, and after that we will revise the family that published already. We will revise and publish in forest in Thai Forest Herbal in Thai Forest Bulletin.
I see.
The first step we would like to conclude and finish project first.
Okay, and what about the people, the new gen that they are going to help us in the future in this project? Are you thinking of this? Because
now
yeah.
Now many young students, young generation interested in Flora, enjoy Flora of Thailand project. Yeah, especially the student from university and a professor from many university in Thailand.
I see. Yeah. Are there any more questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much again, Dr. Pong Sak, for your great talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
So the next speakers, unfortunately, the next two speakers are not able to join us this session, but they provide us with the video of their presentations. So the next speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Monthon Kenmani. He is from the Department of Animal Production Technology and Fisheries, Faculty of Agricultural Technology, King Mongkut Institute of Technology, Lat Krabang in Thailand. He has a Bachelor of Science in Aquatic Science from Burapha University, Master of Science in Marine Science from Chulalongkorn University, and his PhD in Bioresources from Mia University in Japan. His research focused on marine ecology, biodiversity, intertidal ecology, ecophysiology of intertidal mollusks, coral-associated organisms, and aquaculture. He will be sharing us on the physioecology of intertidal animals.
Good morning, all participants. My name is Monthon Kanmani from King Mongkut Institute of Technology Lat Krabang, or KMITL. It is my great honor today to be one of the speakers in the Asian Biodiversity session under the International Academic Conference on Multidisciplinary or Asian Plus in the Age of Disruptive Society. Unfortunately, I cannot make my live online presentation because I'm away from Bangkok and I have another meeting today. So I have to make my presentation as video clip. So sorry for one-way communication. Anyway, if you have any question or comment, please leave it to staffs or contact me by email. Title of my talk today is Ecophysiology of Intertidal Organisms, Case Study on Thermal Stress to rocky shore mollusk. I would like to start my talk with general information on marine biodiversity in Southeast Asia. As you know, the Southeast Asian region is well known for its rich marine biodiversity in the world. It's a global center of marine biodiversity for reef-building coral, reef fish, mollusks, crustacean, sea glass, and mangrove species. According to Boucher in 2006, a new species continue to be discovered worldwide. So this is also true for the new species of marine organism can be discovered in Southeast Asia too, especially in countries that information of marine species are scarce. Recently, the benefits from rich marine ecosystem services in Southeast Asia has been decreased by anthropogenic stresses. The main threats including overexploitation or overfishing, habitat loss, land reclamation, invasive species or bioinvasion, the pollution, especially from land-based sources. Finally, the global climate change is also believed to be affected to marine biodiversity in Southeast Asia. Of course, the climate change should be one of the major threats to marine biodiversity in Thailand too. So we can see from some phenomena, for example, the massive mortality of hard coral in Enso year. This is some information of climate change in Thailand. Based on the definition of climate change that refer to long-term shift in temperature and weather pattern. This is the graph show the trend line of mean temperature and maximum temperature. This is an over 100-year data. So both trend line, I mean the maximum temperature and mean air temperature is gradually increased. And if you see like a yearly data, the highest one happened in 1998 when the extreme ENSO happened in that year. This is a data from Limskun and his colleagues in 2019. He concluded that temperature in Thailand has increased 1.3 degrees Celsius over the past 48 years, I mean from 1970 to 2017. He also found that the frequency of tropical monsoon that hit to Thailand has significantly decreased. So from this information, we may assume that marine ecosystem and also marine biodiversity in Thailand now under the climate change situation. If you have a question that what happened with marine organism in terms of biodiversity under climate change, if air temperature and also sea temperature in Thailand tend to increase, and do the climate change have any impact to biodiversity of marine organism in Thailand? Study on ecophysiology may give us some answer. Have to see the definition of ecophysiology from nature. The ecophysiology is the study of how the environment, both the physical and biological, interact with the physiology of an organism. It includes the effects of climate and nutrients on physiological processes in both plants and animals, and it has a particular focus on how physiological processes scale with organism size. So, what can scientists do? This is the classic paper published in the Journal of Experimental Biology in 2010 by Professor George Somero from Stanford University. He generated the ideas on physiology of animal under climate change conditions, how animal can survive either acclimate itself or by genetic adaptation. So at the last, there has the winner and loser. The winner can survive by these mechanisms under climate change, but the loser are no longer live in such condition. So the two main questions that we need to check. The first one is how can we identify which species will be affected under climate change? And the second one is how can we predict how species will respond? In order to predict what species will be the winner or loser in the future climates, we need to know three main aspects that control and existing of any species in the present climate. They are ecology, how species can modify their performance, for example, habitat selection or migration. The second aspect is the physiological aspect, how species can currently perform the physiology, energy for survival, growth, on reproduction. This is like the homeostasis concept. How can they control the energy budget? And the last one is the genetic, how species can adapt or acclimate, the capacity for adaptation or acclimation. So we also need to have the past climate data. This is the influence of the past environmental conditions. So we move to intertidal rocky shore. Why intertidal rocky shore species are suitable for ecophysiology study. Rocky shore ecology has been studied for a long time, more than 2,000 years ago. Start from 200 years ago. Some of the earliest manipulative experimental ecological studies were undertaken on rocky shore. Many of ecological theory are generated from rocky shore. I think you have heard about the concept on ecological niche. I mean, like real-life niche and fundamental niche is originate from rocky shore manipulative study by Cornell in 1961. The concept of keystone species by Robert Payne in 1974, and also the supply side ecology concept is from rocky shore. So this is a good place to study on basic ecology. When we focusing on study on ecophysiology of marine organisms under climate change, intertidal rocky shore species are the most suitable because rocky intertidal system exists at the interface of land and sea, and so intertidal rocky shore species must experience living in both terrestrial and oceanic environment. Species immerse in water during high tide and exposed to air during low tide. Rocky shore species have the biphasic life cycle. The part of the life is the planktonic, the rest is benthic, though it's also influenced by terrestrial and oceanic changes. And the last one, the species are living close to their physiological limits, especially from temperature. Physical factors differ very much from different in elevation zone in intertidal area. There are great effect to distribution pattern and abundance of intertidal rocky shore species. Some species cannot survive if it's exposed to a very long time, while some species has much more tolerance under the same condition. So each species has their own specific area for living. We show as a band, or sometimes we call zone, in vertical direction. So most of the rocky shore species have the vertical zonation. Normally for intertidal rocky shore ecology study, we classify intertidal rocky shore into 3 zones. These are high shore, mid shore, and low shore. Tidal range, either the daily and monthly range, is a major contribution to classify each zone. This is a picture show the common rocky shore species of mollusk in Thailand. So you can see each species have their own zonation. Echinolytorina malacana, the periwinkle. This is distributed in high shore. In mid shore of intertidal rocky shore in Thailand, you can find the coin snail, the Planexis sulcatus, and also the other nominated species. The bivalve in the mid shore mostly we find isonoma nucleus. In some area is very or extremely abundant. For example, Sichang Island. It's abundant sometimes up to 1,000 individual per square meters. The rock oyster, Sequestria cuculata or Sequestria commercialis, can be found from mid-shore to low-shore. And we can see a lot of limpets, Selenatorum in the low-shore. For eco-physiological study, there are many ways to measure physiological response of this mollusk to thermal stress. So from now, the climate change, the meaning of climate change, effect or impact to the marine organism in Thailand is the thermal stress. Firstly, we need to know the information of their habitat temperature or environmental temperature, as well as their body temperature. And also, we should know what is the maximum temperature they can survive, what we call the lethal temperature. We measure in terms of LT50. This is good if we can know what is the maximum temperature of the animals can maintain their metabolic activities, or Arrhenius breakpoint temperature or ABT. Finally, the measure of the heat shock protein enzyme or HSP. This is good to check the effect of the thermal stress to the response of the intertidal rocky shore species. So I will show some of the results that I've been working with my collaborator from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Italy, and also the mainland China. We did a lot of work with intertidal rocky shore mollusks. For example, the Selenatorum, and also the periwinkle snail, the Echinolytorina. So we have some work on thermal stress on the tiny oyster isonoma nucleus, and we measure the Arrhenius breakpoint temperature, I mean the temperature that the maximum temperature that they can control the metabolic activities. This is a sum of the result of the environmental and body temperature measurement. We use the data logger we call I button. This will record the temperature. Is put the I button in the dead shell of a mollusk or the big barnacle and fill with some Scott cast, and then put in the intertidal rocky shore area. We deploy the data logger along the intertidal rocky shore in 4 places: in Xishang Island, in the Gulf of Thailand, in the Gulf of Thailand, in Chumpon Coast, in Raja Island in Phuket, and Ao Nang, Krabi. This is the data we got from 2019 and 2020 in 2 zones in Xishang Island, the high shore and the mid shore. You can see that the maximum temperature of the high shore is higher than mid shore. The maximum temperature is reached to 55 degrees Celsius, while the mid shore in Xishang Island is about 47 degrees Celsius. For the Chumpon, the maximum temperature, maximum habitat temperature in high shore is lower. It's about 46.6 degrees Celsius, and the mid shore is 42.8 degrees Celsius. And when we look in the Krabi, in the Andaman side, the maximum temperature is close to Chumpon, the Gulf of Thailand. It is about 48 degrees Celsius, and the mid shore is 46.7 degrees Celsius. And in Raja Island, Phuket, is quite very surprised. This is very high maximum habitat temperature. It reached to 52.4 degrees Celsius in summer, but the low shore is in average when compared with the other another 3 sites. The maximum habitat temperature is 43.7 degrees Celsius. There is another option to measure the habitat temperature and body temperature. You can use the thermocouple, insert the thermocouple to the body of the animal and record the in situ body temperature. We can also use the infrared camera to check the habitat temperature and body temperature, but it's a short time measurement. We use the I button or data logger. We can get the long-term data. As you know, in summer is the most serious and also severe for intertidal rocky shore mollusks because they live under very high temperature. This is some data show how difference between high shore, mid shore, and low shore when we use the IR camera and the thermocouple. The high shore is the temperature at high shore is always higher than mid shore and low shore. And when we compare the quality of data between the thermocouple and IR camera, we found that the use of IR camera give the better result than the thermocouple. So this is a case study for for tiny oyster isonomal nucleus. So it is confirmed that the use of the IR camera gives the better result than the thermocouple. So when we see about the lethal temperature of the intertidal rocky shore mollusk, as I told you that the pearly binger, the Echinolithorina malacana, they live in high shore. So the lethal temperature of the organism is highest. And you compare with the tiny oyster that mostly distribute in midshore, the LT50 is only 53 degrees Celsius. And for the low shore species, the limpet, Selenatorum, it has the lowest LT50. All of them die in my experiment about 43 degrees Celsius. The data about the Arrhenius breakpoint temperature, we attach the sensor to measure the heart rate, and we increase the temperature, the air temperature. We set the experiment in the container and put the container with the sensor and mollusk in the container and put them in the water bath and heat the water temperature. So when we check their heart rate and what happened. So when the heart rate start to drop, this point is mean the breakpoint temperature. This is mean this is a maximum temperature that they can keep or maintain or control their metabolic activities. And after this temperature, the metabolic activities is start to go down. So it is the data of the Arrhenius breakpoint temperature, or ABT, in the three species that abundance in each zone. The high shore organisms, the periwinkle Echinolithorina maracana, has the breakpoint temperature at about 49 degrees Celsius, while the tiny lobster is quite surprised. They have like a two peak of breakpoint temperature. Their heart rate is start to drop. The first drop in about 36 degrees Celsius and go down, and then they increase again. The second drop is about 48 degrees Celsius, but for Selenatorum, the metabolic activity of the limpets is dropped at 38 degrees Celsius. This is a graph of the breakpoint temperature of the isonormal nucleus, the tiny oyster that I mentioned. So you can see this is two peak of the metabolic activity. The first drop is start at about 35 or 36 degrees Celsius. They go down and then they start to increase again. So the second drop is about 48 degrees Celsius. For the heat shock protein, it has data about the heat shock protein in different temperature in different part of the tiny oyster body. We check the heat shock protein in the adductor muscle, gill, and mantle. So you can see that the pattern of the heat shock protein enzyme increase with when the temperature is increased as well. So this is just a summary of the result that we have. The I button, or sometimes we call robo locker, sometimes we call the robo barnacle. If you put the data locker in the barnacle shell, we can call it a robo limpet when we put the data locker in the limpets. This is good and reliable for collect long-term data of body temperature and also the environmental temperatures. And tidal level, this is the main factor that control the zonation pattern of intertidal rocky shores mollusks. This is main effect also for thermal stress, and the high shore species is the most stressed. The rocky shore species live close to their upper thermal limits, and they will be more sensitive to the future temperature increase. So we predict that the air temperature and also the seawater temperature increase in the future. This means right now, all of the intertidal rocky shore mollusks, they live very close to their physiological limits. And what will happen if the temperature increase over their physiological limits? They can survive or distinguish? We need to check in the future. And the last one is the tropical shore species that live under the high mean temperature and narrow thermal range. This might be less thermal tolerance than subtropical species. That's one of our results. We compare the thermal tolerance between tropical and subtropical species. So the data show that the subtropical species has more tolerance than the tropical species. I think this is as we should go to the end of my talk. Would like to thank you all of our collaborators and also the students and staff. We have been work a lot in the intertidal rocky shore area in Thailand. This is my collaborators. It's Professor Gray William from Biswai Institute of Marine Science, University of Hong Kong. The Professor Gianluca Sara from University of Palermo in Italy, and John Bui from formerly he worked as a professor in German University. Now he moved to Ocean University of China in Qingdao, and also Maui, Dr. Mauricio De Piero from Italy, and Professor Benishan from Academia Sinica. Okay, thank you for your attention. Again, I'm very happy to have your suggestion or comments. Finally, I would like to thank Dr. Thamasak for inviting me to be one of the speakers. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Monton Kenmani for giving us a big picture of marine biodiversity and the response to the climate change. He provided us some ecological, physiological aspect of marine organism in intertidal rocky shore, responding to the climate change, particularly his threats. Okay, the next speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Thamasak Yimin. Dr. Thamasak Yimin is the Dean of the Faculty of Science, the head of Marine Biodiversity Research Group, Ramkhamhaeng University, and he is a president of Marine Science Association of Thailand. He received his doctoral degree in biology from Kyushu University, master degree in biology from the University of Ryukyu in Japan, and in marine biology from Chulalongkorn University. He has worked in various aspects of marine ecology, biology, environmental science, socioeconomics, coastal ecosystem management, and marine protected area for nearly 30 years. He is a national focal point for coral reef components under the UNEP GEF project on reversing environmental degradation trends in the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. He is also the founding member of the Asia Pacific Coral Reef Society and a former counselor of the International Coral Reef Society. He has worked for some regional collaborative projects under international organizations. For this session, he will be talking about carbon neutral marine tourism in Thailand.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vichin, for your introduction. I'm now going to share with you about the carbon neutral marine ecotourism in Thailand. Let me give you a brief introduction of Thailand tourism situation. Based on the tourism statistics of the Department of Tourism, the number of tourists, both domestic and international travelers, tended to increase before sharply dropped due to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we look at the number of tourists in the coastal provinces, except for Bangkok, which can imply the situation of marine tourism sector, we found that in the year 2019, the number of tourists in the coastal provinces was 76 million. The average length of stay was about 3 days. The average expenditure was about 3,000 baht. It generated a large amount of tourism revenue. As I mentioned earlier, marine tourism is an important activity contributing to Thailand's blue economy. Marine ecotourism generates incomes for local communities and nations. Marine tourism is popular because Thailand has abundant marine and coastal resources in the Gulf of Thailand and also in the Andaman Sea, particularly for the coral reef ecosystems, beach, mangrove forests, which are considered important tourism assets. It is estimated that the economic value of direct use of Thailand's marine and coastal resources, specifically in tourism, is approximately 300,000 million baht. We have a wide range of marine tourism activities. For example, snorkeling, scuba diving, free diving, sea walking, underwater scooter, swimming, kite surfing, jet ski, parasailing, banana boat, boating for dolphin or whale watching or sightseeing, sailing, recreational fishing, paddleboard, kayak, canoe, surfboarding, and so on. If we look at the global tourism trend, it has been developed over time. Various tourism standards, trends have been developed to comply with various principles from ecotourism to sustainable tourism. Due to the global concern on climate change, such tourism standards are moving forward to carbon neutral tourism. At the United Nations Climate Conference COP26, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, or GSTC, has signed the Glasgow Declaration to support the climate action in tourism. In the future, carbon neutral tourism could be added into other tourism standards. Let me give you a brief introduction of some tourism standards that are related to marine tourism sector. The first one is GSTC. GSTC criteria serve as the global standard for sustainability in travel and tourism. The criteria are used for education and awareness raising, policy making for business and government agencies and other organization types, measurement and evaluation, and as a basis for certification. The criteria focus on 4 pillars, that is sustainable management, socio-economic impacts, cultural impacts, and environmental impacts. Green Globe International Standard for Sustainable Tourism. The Green Globe Standard includes 44 criteria in 4 groups and supported over 385 compliance indicators. These indicators consist of sustainability criteria, certification policies and procedures, and auditor guidelines focusing on 4 principles: sustainable management, social economic aspect, cultural heritage, and environmental aspect. The International Organization for Standardization, over ISO, has launched 2 standards for recreational diving and services. The ISO 21416 recreational diving services requirements and guidance on environmentally sustainable practices in recreational diving. These standards specifies the requirements for service providers with regard to responsible practices for the provision of their services. It also provides guidance to all stakeholders involved in recreational diving related activities on best practices to minimize negative impacts on the aquatic environment and to optimize positive outcomes. The ISO 21417 recreational diving services requirement for training on environmental awareness for recreational divers. This standard specifies requirements for training programs designed to educate participants in environmental awareness and sustainable environmental practices in recreational diving activities. The European Underwater Federation standard is created by European Underwater Federation, focusing on safety and quality of scuba diving training organizations and dive centers. EUF certification international provides tour operators, dive centers, the ability to provide their competence and quality of service to confirm as an independent body that a service has been tested and that its quality is subject to proper control mechanisms. The green fin. It is a proven conservation management approach implemented internationally by the Reef World Foundation and the United Nations Environment Programme. Greenfin aims to protect coral reefs through environmentally friendly guidelines, promoting sustainable diving and snorkeling, by providing internationally recognized environmental standards for marine tourism. In Thailand, we also have our national tourism standard. The Department of Tourism under Ministry of Tourism and Sport has developed the Thailand tourism standards since 2007, consisting of 4 categories: hotel accommodation standards, tourism service standards, recreational activity standards, and destination standards. The standards related to marine recreational tourism include standards for recreational diving, standard for canoeing and kayaking, standard for jet skiing, standard for tour boats, and so on. As you may see that there is no climate action incorporating into the tourism standards. In the near future, climate action will have an important key point that should be added into the tourism standards. Besides the reduction of carbon emission, one big question is that how we can support carbon sequestration. Nature-based solutions may become an important tool for climate action, particularly carbon offsetting in tourism sector. Some marine and coastal ecosystems, particularly mangrove and seagrass beds, are important nature-based solutions that can be as a carbon sink and reduce carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Mangroves in Trat province in the eastern Gulf of Thailand can potentially store nearly 1,000 tons of carbon per hectare. The seagrass beds in Thailand can store over 140 tons of carbon per hectare. Coral reefs can be as a carbon sink. The carbonate structure of coral reefs can be a sink of carbon dioxide. It is estimated that about 7 to 15% of global natural carbonate accumulation was from coral reefs. Carbon can be also stored as marine sediment in coral reefs. Organic carbon in coral reef sediment at some island in India range from 2.21 to 2.35 milligrams carbon per gram. The organic matter in coral reef sediment at the coral reefs of Mugor Chumpon was about 7 to 15%. It can be stored as biomass of seagrass, algae, and plankton. Some carbon can be captured through ecological processes such as decomposition, molting, liquefaction, planktonic deposition, and so on. One big question is that how we can offset carbon emission. Carbon neutral or net zero carbon emission tourism is a new issue. Some countries have adopted this concept into their tourism development. For example, in Indonesia and the Philippines, conservation activities have been incorporated into ecotourism with the purpose of enhancing carbon sequestration. As a global concern on climate change has risen, the Thailand's direction on tourism development tends to focus not just only on sustainable tourism, but also carbon neutral tourism. The transforming into carbon neutral tourism needs scientific information to support tourism planning, the decision making, and implementation. I think the academic knowledge on carbon neutral marine ecotourism in Thailand is still limited, and the competency level of marine tourism operators is unclear. This could be the key challenges in developing marine carbon neutral tourism in Thailand. For those reasons, we initiated the project on the development of a standard for Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism. This project is supported by the Office of National Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation Policy Council and the Program Management Unit for Competitiveness. These projects aim to assess carbon footprint for marine tourism activities, to develop guidelines for the reduction of carbon emission and carbon offsetting, develop a standard for Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism, create and provide training programs for marine tour operators. We have just started this project for a few months. We conducted the project in 3 provinces, that is in Phuket province and Krabi province in the Andaman Sea, and 1 study site in Surat Thani province. It is located in the western Gulf of Thailand. All of these provinces are popular tourism destinations. For this project, we expect several outputs: the database on carbon footprint of marine tourism activities, guidelines and solution for the reduction of carbon emission and offsetting, estimated supply of carbon offsetting, a standard for Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism, the mechanisms for developing Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism, a training curriculum on Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism standard, to operators trained who are knowledgeable on Thailand's carbon neutral marine tourism standard, and also the networks of Thai carbon neutral marine tourism operators. We also hope that our project will provide key impacts on economic, social, and environmental aspects. For the economic aspect, Thailand Marine Tourism Service standards may help promote reputation of the country tourism image, gaining trust from international tourists, thus increase the tourism revenue. The higher competency of marine tourism operators may help promote investment in the marine tourism business in the future. For social aspect, growing carbon neutral tourism generate support better livelihoods and well-being of local communities. And the project enhance networking and collaborating among marine tourism business operators. For environmental aspects, carbon neutral marine tourism is one of climate actions that reduce carbon emission and climate change impacts. And relevant agencies and public society gain more knowledge and awareness on carbon neutral marine tourism. I would like to give you some case study that reflect some effort to achieve eco-friendly and low carbon tourism. This is a prototype of long-tail solar power boat which was designed by German consultant. The long-tail solar power boat was modified from traditional fishing boat installed with an electric motor from Germany. Solar cells are installed on the roof, connecting with a series of batteries. The cost of the development of this prototype around 1 million Thai baht, financially supported by the Asian Development Bank or ADB. This prototype served as an environmental friendly boat for recreational boating and sightseeing along the Kabi River. I think this is a good example of the solar power boat that can be used in the marine tourism sector. Another case study is that a low carbon tourism activities that are provided by local communities at Tung Yipeng on Got Lanta in Krabi province. The low carbon tourism packages emphasize minimizing the use of electricity using local and biodegradable materials to produce material for food and so on. In summary, the tourism development is important to secure the economy, livelihoods, along with conserving environment. Carbon neutral tourism may be an important key concept for tourism development in the future to achieve the sustainable development goals and climate actions. And that means it is an important tool for the marine biodiversity protection as well. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thamasak Yimin, for your presentation. We learned some idea on the development of marine tourism that is highly dynamic and moving from ecotourism, sustainable tourism into carbon neutral tourism. And it is great to know that there is a research project to support for the future's marine tourism developments in the futures. And this is the last speaker. We are approaching to the end of this session. Before we close the session, we may have to take a group photos from the online via Zoom system. Could you please turn on your your camera, please? Just turn on for just only a few seconds so that our staff can capture the screen. Okay, thank you very much. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank all of the speakers for sharing some idea and thought on various aspects of biodiversity. We also thank all of the participants joining the conference on site here and online via Zoom system. And we hope to see you again in the future. And very welcome and thank you very much. Excuse me, just to let you know that on tomorrow, we still have the session in the morning. And in the afternoon, we have a panel discussion on sustainable fishery management in the marine protected area. You may join that. Thank you.
Record